Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Rose, and I'm the CHW Toronto Centre President. I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us here tonight. We're excited to have you with us as we hear just the facts from our special guest, Rolene Marks. Events like this remind us of the importance of coming together, building connections, and supporting one another and Israel. A big thank you to Rolene Marks for coming all the way to Canada, and to CHW President Tova Train and CHW CEO Lisa Kotler for keeping her company along the way. A special shout out to Lisa for joining us tonight on a broken foot. So Lisa, we hope you're not too uncomfortable, and we wish you a speedy recovery. We look forward to an inspiring and enjoyable time together, and we hope you leave today feeling connected, inspired, and informed. Right now, I ask everyone to please stand together for O Canada and then Hatikva. Over 100 years ago, a group of visionary Jewish women came together and created CHW, Canadian Hadassah-WIZO. Since then, we've grown into a national network of volunteers who believe that supporting education, healthcare, and social services can change lives. And we believe that this work goes beyond politics, religions, and even borders. At CHW, our mission is simple: to empower women, children, and families in Israel and Canada so they can live safer, healthier, and more hopeful lives. Our vision is about impact. We want to make a real difference through the projects we support, whether that's advancing medical research, improving access to healthcare, strengthening social services, or helping children reach their full potential through education. When people are given the chance to thrive, it doesn't just change their lives, it creates ripples of hope and progress that touch entire communities. We also believe in the power of people like you, our donors, volunteers, and of course our friends. Together, you're not just giving time or money, you're giving people the opportunity to heal, to grow, and to dream bigger. For more than a century, CHW has stood for empowerment, leadership, inclusivity, and transparency. We fill critical gaps, step in where support is needed most, and stand alongside the most vulnerable. That's the heart of what we do. And speaking of empowering leadership, I would like to now introduce my dear friend and mentor, Tova Train, our CHW National President.
Very funny, thank you.
Good evening, Chaverim. I give a big sigh because it has been quite a week almost traveling with Rolene and Lisa across the country, and it has been, the west side of the country. It's been a great journey and a great experience seeing the people who make up this organization. It's a national organization, and I truly got to experience that this week. As Susie said, I am Tova Train, and I am truly honored to be before you this evening as CHW's national president. My journey with CHW began over 30 years ago when I joined a chapter and then another chapter, and eventually I found my place in this organization through volunteering. So putting my hand up, I'll do this, I'll do that, and eventually I've done, I think, just about every job there is, except maybe official coffee barista or something, I don't know. Along the way, I've also had the privilege of co-chairing new initiatives like the SOS campaign, Fashion Blooms, and events that have grown into annual fundraisers, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of those. Growing up, CHW was always a part of my life from the very beginning, and I grew up in Edmonton, in a community that was brought together by the Jewish women's groups, generally speaking, the Hebrew school, the synagogues. My mother was involved, and it's in my DNA, so I feel an extra connection to the organization and the work that we do. But I never imagined myself taking on the role of national president. Some days I still don't imagine that I'm national, but anyway. But I've always believed that if I cannot serve Israel in uniform, then my obligation is to serve in every other way I can. And I truly believe that. That's why CHW speaks so deeply to me. For more than a century, we have invested in education. We've invested in healthcare, social services, and today, especially after October 7th, those needs have never, ever been greater. From mental health therapies to physical rehabilitation, our support is answering urgent calls and bringing hope, real hope, to countless lives. Looking forward, one of my goals is to grow CHW across Canada. We are a multi-generational organization, and I want to see supporters of all ages joining together as we rebuild some centers, expand chapters in others, and strengthen our presence from coast to coast. After all, CHW has always been about bringing people together, sometimes with food, sometimes with fashion, but always with heart. This is a time for unity, for standing together as a community, and for ensuring Israel's future. CHW is more than an organization, as I'm sure many of you have felt. It's a sisterhood. And together, we make an impact that is measurable, meaningful, and lasting. And I am so proud to be a part of this incredible movement. Thank you. Now, please enjoy the video about our great work.
Trauma, if left unaddressed, can lead to severe and long-lasting psychological, emotional, and physical consequences. Healing is a delicate process that requires a holistic, integrated approach with attention to mind and body together. Israel is facing a devastating situation. An entire generation in trauma with a predicted 5% of the population experiencing severe PTSD. Israel will be dealing with the aftermath of these traumatic events for years to come. By focusing our campaigns and events on programs that fill the gaps in mental health and trauma recovery, with your help, CHW will contribute to the overall stability and resilience of Israeli society, providing individuals with a chance for a healthier future. At Shamir Medical Center, CHW is funding groundbreaking PTSD therapy using innovative hyperbaric oxygen medicine coupled with psychological support and medications for a holistic approach to treat the most severe cases across the country. At Hadassah Hospital, CHW is supporting an integrated approach to healing minds and bodies by funding both the psychological rehabilitation unit and the hydrotherapy pool. We provide financial, social, and emotional support for at-risk women and mental shelters and provide the basic essentials to start over safely. CHW funds innovative solutions for the prevention of and protection from intimate partner violence by supporting the Hadassah Forum's canine protection dogs, 24/7 security services, and self-defense lessons. Hadassah-WIZO's trauma intervention program utilizes the transformative power of surfing to prevent PTSD in youth and help those who experienced trauma on October 7th. CHW is funding this unique program. Her academy is empowering women escaping prostitution by providing vocational training, job placement services, and building community. CHW is a proud supporter, giving women an opportunity for economic independence. In Canada, CHW provides access to critical resources across the country, including legal counsel and therapeutic counseling services through Friends Fund. Our funding of Canadian Young Judea's leadership and camp experiences will help promote Jewish identity and support marginalized youth. CHW Youth Villages provide a safe home away from home, where at-risk students can thrive through specialized counseling and therapy, hands-on agricultural experiences, and music programs. Our funding at Battalion Technological High School gives a second chance to the most at-risk youth, funding therapeutic counseling and vocational programs so that students can achieve their academic and personal goals. CHW funds scholarships at colleges in Israel and universities in Canada, giving at-risk students a chance for improved career outcomes. Continuing our mission to fill gaps in critical services, CHW is now supporting Eden Association. Eden's Trauma Therapy Center provides innovative trauma-focused care for girls and women from the northern Negev and Gaza envelope to prevent long-term suffering, restore hope, and build a healthier future. Through CHW, we support thousands of women, children, parents, soldiers, and families who endured unimaginable pain and regain hope and rebuild their lives. None of this would be possible without the steadfast support of our donors, for whom we are grateful. There are many ways to support CHW. Make a gift, join a chapter, volunteer, fundraise, and consider becoming a member of the CHW Legacy Circle.
We know you share our vision of a better world. As your partner in philanthropy, CHW can help turn your vision into reality. It starts now and continues with the legacy you leave behind. It is a seed you plant today that grows into something strong, something that will help make a difference in the lives of so many women and children in need. Through the lasting friendships you've built over the years with CHW and our vital projects that have touched your life, together we can become part of your extended family. Making a planned gift to CHW allows you to take care of your extended CHW family while still ensuring the future of your loved ones. Consider a planned gift to enjoy significant tax and financial advantages while providing financial security for our projects in Israel to sustain them for generations to come. Your giving lives on by changing lives, providing hope, and building futures. A fruit-bearing tree will be planted at one of our youth villages in your memory, providing sustainability, sustenance, and financial security. The roots of your tree will connect your memory with our homeland. your legacy will live on. Learn how you can become a member of our Legacy Circle today.
Thank you today and always for your generous philanthropy.
Just before we move on, for those of you who are joining me in Israel in November, I will take you to see all those places, or pretty much, I think, for seeing everyone. For those of you who have not decided yet if you're coming, we do have a few spaces left, so let me know. It's going to be a spectacular trip. And speaking of trips, one of us going on the trip may or may not have a broken foot when we go. Hopefully Lisa's cast will be off by then. Please let me introduce Lisa Cole-Kotler, our CEO, and the professional that drives this amazing machine. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So great to see you all. This is our 5th stop on our whistle stop tour across Canada. And we flew in late this afternoon, and then we're off tomorrow to Ottawa and Montreal. So it's been wonderful. And in each city that we go to, I'm more and more impressed, empowered, inspired by Rolene and her passion for what she does. And she is, she's so authentic. And if you're not following her WhatsApp group, you must. So we will connect you. I just, as a housekeeping note, want to share 2 things. One is that we will be sending out after tonight's presentation a list of all the links that Rolene will mention in her presentation, where you can get factual information. So we'll be sharing that, as well as how to connect to her WhatsApp group so that you can be part of her news group. The other housekeeping note is that we are filming this evening. We discovered as we went across the country there were many people that couldn't join us and wish they could have. And so we will be sharing the presentation with all of our donors. I want to ask that when you receive it, could you please forward it on to your own contacts? Because the more we can spread this message broadly, the more impact we can create. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Susan Rose for helping to organize this evening, and her Vice President, Lila Lax, as well as our professional team, Karen, Alina, who just joined us. Today's her first day, so welcome, and Katya. So thank you so much. And lastly, I always seem to forget my husband when I'm thanking people, so I want to thank my husband, Andrew Kotler, and it's going out to the entire country, dear. I'm thanking you for all your support, especially since I broke my foot, which is not a fun story. So when Tova and I were trying to decide what program we wanted to present, it was, there was no doubt in our mind that Rolene was the right guest speaker. Sure, like me, you're all struggling to pick through the vast amount of news and information and decide in a critical way what's real, what's fake news, what's propaganda, what should I be sharing, what should I not share, how delegitimized Israel is what it's facing, and how can we all act as foot soldiers on the ground to help dispel the misinformation that's being circulated. Without a doubt, we realized that Rolene was the right speaker. This is the time where not only is there an active and horrific war taking place on so many fronts, but the media war is without a doubt affecting us here in the diaspora, and is really the fuel that's igniting so much anti-Semitism that we're facing. So with no further ado, I want to introduce Rolene. Rolene is a freelance journalist, broadcaster, and keynote speaker. She appears regularly on international media, including CNN, Channel News Asia, I-24 News, and more. She's the owner of Rolene Marks Consulting, specializing in media, public relations, and training on Jewish and Israel-related issues for clients worldwide. Rolene hosts Modi'in and Beyond on Radio Modi'in and is a daily contributor on Johannesburg High FM. She co-founded Lay of the Land and presents the Israel Brief on YouTube. She serves as the national spokesperson for the South African Zionist Federation. She is a dedicated WIZO leader, first and foremost, and she holds the public diplomacy portfolio for World WIZO's executive, representing the organization at international forums, including the UN Alliance of Civilization sessions on anti-Semitism and at the International Alliance of Women. She, in her spare time, is a doctoral candidate at Middlesex University, London, researching media, politics, and anti-Semitism. And it is my pleasure to present Rolene Marks.
I've been told I cannot move away from the podium tonight, so I hope you can all see me, because at 5 foot tall, it's a little bit difficult. And seeing so many South Africans with matching accents or accents in the room, I feel like I am amongst the mishpacha, the mishpocha. So it feels very, very familiar. Before I start, I want to take a moment to acknowledge and express our gratitude to the brave men and women of the Israel Defense Forces who are defending the nation state of the Jewish people 24/7. I speak to those soldiers. I know those soldiers. They are our family members. They are our sons. They conduct themselves by an impeccable code of ethics that other armies can't even emulate. And they are an army we can be proud of. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the over 900 soldiers who have fallen in defense of the State of Israel since the 7th of October. And those soldiers who are injured, both with external wounds and those who have the wounds that we cannot see. The latest statistic is that we have over 10,000 soldiers currently being treated for mental health issues. And when you support the work of Canadian Hadassah-WIZO, you are supporting those soldiers with a necessary lifeline to treat whatever mental health issues they have. And not just our soldiers, but all of the citizens of the State of Israel, including myself. It is no secret that we will be facing a mental health tsunami in the coming months and years, maybe even decades, as a result of the 7th of October and the war that has followed, and the wars within the wars. So I want to thank everybody who is committed, and especially Canadian Hadassah-WIZO, not only for your work, but for having me here in Canada, that I can spread that message from coast to coast, literally from coast to coast, because we've been from one end of the country to the other. I also want to mention 48 universes that are still held captive in the Gaza Strip. For us in Israel, they are not just names on a poster or pictures. They are not just people, they are our universes. They each have a story, they each have a family that is enduring agony, and we can't even begin to comprehend what the hostages that are still alive are currently going through. And we can't even begin to fathom that we have deceased hostages either murdered on the 7th of October or in captivity, with the exception of Hadar Golden, who has been in captivity. His remains have been in captivity since 2014. They are not just our brothers, and Inbar Heyman, our sister. They are our universes, and every single one of them needs to come home now. So since the 7th of October, we have seen that war is fought on different battlefields. We have all seen what started in the south of the country, from the Gaza Strip, and then quickly followed in succession by Hasbara in the north, and jihadist organizations from Syria and Iraq, of course all sponsored by Iran. The West Bank, or what people call Judea and Samaria, it's interchangeable, so please nobody throw anything at me because I'm using the accepted media definition. And who knew there were these people called the Houthis, but apparently they do exist. And they're in Yemen, and they have been firing on us on a daily basis. In fact, last night when we got home, back to the hotel, I saw that there had been azakot, there had been sirens in Eilat. And we've had Iran fire on us. We can't forget that war of June, a war within a war. And let me tell you something, I have never been more proud to be Israeli, as I saw our country rise like the lions that we are. And there are other battlefields. The 8th battlefield, which is the battlefield of anti-Semitism, and what I call the 9th battlefield, or the 9th frontier, and that is the war in the media. Because we've seen over the last 2 years not just how Hamas prepared their kinetic battlefield, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the human shield strategy, but also how they prepared their media narrative. And as we all know, from the 8th of October, we saw in the streets of New York and London and Toronto and at the Sydney Opera House, we saw people allow their inner Jew hater to fly free, and a media campaign that has empowered them to do so since the 7th of October, starting the very next day. Now, I'm a journalist, and I have the unique experience of both living this war and covering this war. And if you think about it, journalists are also first responders, because we're the ones immediately in the field covering what has happened. And for me, it has been the privilege of my life, as difficult as it has been, to be able to tell the story of the victims of the 7th of October and the story of the people of my country to you guys and to the media around the world. But my colleagues from the foreign press haven't been so great at doing that. And I've seen it for myself in the field. I've seen the attitude when they cover stories or when they cover incidents, and I'm going to share stories with you. And every single one of us has seen how the media is becoming almost a stenographer for Hamas, repeating whatever Hamas statistics, whatever Hamas speaking points are out there. And I have a belief that Hamas studied for decades our habits, the way we conduct ourselves as a people, but they also studied very, very carefully people's latent anti-Semitism and how easy it is to trigger that with very, very careful media campaigns. Now, I just said to you, I've seen it in the field, and I'm going to share 2 stories with you. The first is about a year ago on day 360 of the war, just before the 1 year anniversary, and we are sadly creeping up on 2 years. I went down to the south with the government press office. There were 3 of us Israeli journalists and the rest were all foreign press, and we're going to Kibbutz Nir Oz. We've all heard the story of Kibbutz Nir Oz, probably the worst affected kibbutz, where a third of its residents were either murdered or taken captive. It's the kibbutz of the Bibas family. It's the kibbutz of the Lifshitz family and so many others. And we're walking through this kibbutz where very little is still left standing because Hamas and the other terrorist organizations that came through just burnt everything in sight. And we come to a kindergarten, and there's a little hook on the wall for a small child to hang his little school bag, and the little label above says Ariel. Yeah. And we carry on walking through the kibbutz, and there's a stench that cuts across every now and then, which is impossible to describe, but you know it when you smell it. And we get to the house of Oded and Yocheved Lifshitz, what's left of it. This was a couple that were on the vanguard of the peace movement. Oded was a journalist. The two had put together the most magnificent cactus garden. In fact, it was actually quite famous. People used to come to see their beautiful cactus garden. And we're standing outside what is left of this house where they played the piano, where they used to make jam, where they used to entertain, where they played with their children and their grandchildren. And Rita Lifshitz, who's the daughter-in-law of Oded, says, "My greatest hope is that whoever is holding my father-in-law hostage recognizes that he took children suffering with cancer once a week to hospitals inside of Israel for life-saving treatment." And one of the foreign press, with a big smile on his face, turns to a colleague and says, "A little bit of destruction in this neighborhood." Well, I gave him a look that could have frozen the Negev desert in the peak of summer, and had to quietly walk away with the guy from the GPO office because we were horrified. You're walking through a killing field. And the other example happened just a couple of weeks ago. You've all heard the story that journalists can't go into Gaza. No names mentioned, Piers Morgan. Well, I can tell you with absolute fact that journalists have been going into the Gaza Strip since about the 23rd of November. There are 2 ways to go into the Gaza Strip. You either go in with the IDF embedded, as happens in every single war, and every single soldier who has fought a war will tell you we never allow journalists to the front line. And Gaza is very complicated because of the type of warfare that we are fighting and how dense it is packed. The whole of the Gaza Strip is the front line. So you either go in with the IDF or you go in with Hamas. You can't just walk into Gaza with a press vest, because the good chance is that you're not going to walk out because somebody is going to either kill you or kidnap you, and that person's not going to be wearing an IDF uniform. Well, I go into Gaza with a few of my colleagues and the former ambassador of Israel to the United States, Ambassador Dr. Michael Oren, and in we go, all vested and helmeted up. It looks very glamorous, but really it's not. And we get to the collection point for humanitarian aid. Now, how it works is that the humanitarian aid trucks come through Israel, they come to the various terrestrial crossings like Kerem Shalom or Zikim Beach or some of the others, and we are in the process of expanding those crossings. This is in addition to the airdrops and what comes in by the sea and other methods. And the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is sponsored by Israel and the United States, and they have handed out, I think, close to 200 million meals directly to the people of Gaza. So the trucks come in, they are inspected by our soldiers to make sure they aren't smuggling anything that can be used in warfare, and they come into the strip and they are offloaded at a massive collection point, and from there the UN and the various agencies, they come and they load up those trucks and they take them through to the civilian centers for the civilians to receive what should be free humanitarian aid. You shouldn't have to pay for your life-saving humanitarian aid, except, of course, we know what was happening is that aid would go in, Hamas and the other terror groups would loot the trucks. The trucks, incidentally, have cages around where the drivers sit, and there were about 300 trucks sitting, waiting to load up and go in when I was there. And what was happening was that Hamas was looting all the goods, selling it at exorbitant prices, and using that money to fund their war machine. And we go in and we see thousands and thousands of pallets of humanitarian aid, mountains piled high, labeled United Nations, UNICEF, which is the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, World Food Programme, and we have heard a lot from Cindy McCain. We should take her to go see all her aid that she has forgotten to collect. The Kingdom of Saudi, the Kingdom of Jordan, etc., etc., etc. And we can see what's in the boxes. Some of them are open. There's cooking oil and flour and pasta and tomato sauce and medicine and baby food and feminine hygiene products and hygiene kits for children, including little pairs of Croc shoes so that they don't cut their feet or injure their feet on any of the rubble, and bags and bags and bags and bags and bags of potatoes and onions sitting rotting in the sun, and potatoes smell when they go off. It's a stench, and we're all walking around, and the IDF say, guys, we're here for questions, you go out there, you explore, they're not inhibiting us in any way. We're walking around and we're all recording what we are seeing. And we see two journalists from the ABC in Australia. And they're standing doing their very serious piece to camera. And the one who's on camera says, I'm here in the Gaza Strip, and this is the face that Israel wants you to think how they are prosecuting their humanitarian aid distribution. Well, you could hear all our jaws drop on the floor. We couldn't believe it. They were seeing the same evidence that the rest of us, including Kan Arabic and another Arabic-speaking news association or journalist was seeing. We couldn't believe it. In fact, I actually said to the soldiers, I think we should leave the two of them in for the night. I think that it was a popular solution, but unfortunately we couldn't because, ABC would start to ask questions. But hey, you want to be in the Gaza Strip? Now here's your chance. And needless to say, when we eventually got back to, I don't even know if you could call it a base, when we were eventually out of the strip, the two scuttled off very, very quickly to go file their report. But it's case in point of what we are dealing with. And it is important that we know about this because as a community in the diaspora, you are feeling the effects of news that is misreported. You are feeling the effects of misinformation and propaganda and how people are allowing that to fuel their hatred, their anger against the state of Israel and see you as their convenient scapegoats and spokespeople for Israel. And those are not the only examples that we know. Those are just two of my personal examples. We all remember the 17th of October in 2023, the report that went around the world that Israel had bombed a hospital. Israel had bombed a hospital and killed 500 people. And I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of me telling this, but Hamas have two extraordinary talents. The one is their ability to burrow and build a subterranean tunnel system that can rival any metro. I think even the Toronto metro, it can rival. And the other is to count in a matter of seconds casualty numbers. It's never been done before. Nobody has this ability. Hamas has this ability. It is unbelievable how they have not won Nobel Prizes for mathematics. I have no idea, but they have. It's amazing. And every damn news outlet just picks it up and runs with it. Nobody asks the questions like, hey, do we have eyes on that hospital? How did they count so quickly? How do they know it's 500? What's their proof? You notice you never see funerals. We then find out that through our intelligence listening into, it was actually a phone call, that it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket that fell short and landed not on the hospital but in the parking lot, causing a little bit of a crater. And yes, unfortunately, from the blast and the shockwaves, killed maybe less than a handful of people. But the shockwaves from that story went out around the world, and we saw synagogues burnt down in Tunisia. We saw thousands taking to the streets of cities around the world, accusing Israel of bombing hospitals. And we hear it every single day in the accusations that are thrown out against Israel. And I know that there are many, and you know because I've heard from people across the country, how do they deal with accusations like genocide, mass starvation, the deliberate bombing of hospitals and schools and mosques? So let's unpack them. First of all, let's start with the accusation of genocide. The term genocide was actually coined by a Jew. Raphael Lemkin, after the Holocaust, came up with the legal term genocide. Genocide is a specific legal term. It is not a word that you can just throw out. And my concern is that once you call everything genocide, then nothing is genocide. And I can tell you where genocides are happening. Genocides are happening to our Druze brothers and sisters in Syria. Genocides are happening in China to the Uyghur Muslims, to the Yazidis. A genocide is what happened to us on the 7th of October. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, Israel is not committing genocide. What is interesting is that that accusation came out against Israel before we had even responded. We were being accused of genocide. Genocide is not about numbers. Genocide is about intent. And you don't intend to kill if you inoculate the children of the Gaza Strip with immunization against polio. You don't commit genocide when you make sure that there are safe humanitarian zones and warn civilians to leave so that they are out of the combat zone. Even the former president of the ICJ, even she said, we did not rule that Israel is committing genocide. She explained the ruling as advisory to Israel to ensure that they don't create the conditions for genocide. It's a very, very big difference. And of course, last week we heard from the UK government that they had investigated, and yes, while they think that the situation is appalling in the Gaza Strip, it's almost as if the UK has never fought a war. They do not see it as genocide. But you guys feel the ramifications of the accusations because you go to the office, or you even have family members who say, I can't support a genocide. Last night we had a few idiots at the Emmy Awards. What's his name? Javier Bardem. It's no wonder he played a psychopath in, what was that, New People, and I don't know, the one where he had the weird hairdo, which of course could be any of his movies. And what's her name? Hannah Einbinder. It's no coincidence. I think it's a great irony she is in a show called Hacks, because she is a hack. And somebody should remind Hannah Einbinder that Judaism is not an institution, as she said. It's an institution. What an insult. What an imbecile. What a hack. So I hope that clears up that accusation for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some resources that you can use to empower yourselves and arm yourselves with facts so that when you are accused of this or you have to answer, because apparently all of us are responsible for whatever military or political campaign our government and army are conducting in the Gaza Strip. All of us. It is amazing. Guys, I don't know how you find the time in between controlling the world to sit in the war room and in the cabinet meetings and in the Knesset. What can I say? We are a busy people. The next accusation is the accusation of mass starvation. And I always found it interesting that we still have, despite the overwhelming evidence, despite us saying to people like David Lammy and your lady, what's her name, Anita Anand, I don't know, she just doesn't make an impression on me, so I can never remember her name, and Penny Wrong, and all of them who are saying, you are deliberately starving the people of Gaza. Don't you speak to your diplomats? Don't you speak to anybody from your country who's in Israel? Is there no line of communication? And I find it interesting that when we ask you to get involved, you don't get involved, but you make some hell of accusations. I can tell you with confidence that Israel has been sending in more aid during this war than before this war. And we're the only country in the history of war that I know of that has been expected to feed its enemy population. And we don't have an issue with that. We don't have an issue with feeding the people of Gaza. We've said it time and again, we will flood the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid, and while we are not legally obligated, our only obligation under the Geneva Convention is not to inhibit the distribution of humanitarian aid. Our moral obligation is that because we are the Jewish state, we will feed the population of Gaza, which we have been doing. We have ensured that no less than 3,000 calories per person per day has entered the Strip. And yes, some people don't have access to food. It's a fact of war. War is horrific. War is people dying. War is the loss of lives of innocents. War is people being displaced. And here I hold Egypt responsible because you've got a big border and lots of land. And Egypt, you are obligated under treaties that you have signed under international law You are obligated to help a community that is fleeing war. I find it absolutely unbelievable. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the world opened its gates to Ukrainians fleeing war. In the Middle East, when we respond to the worst attack on our people since the Holocaust, none of these countries are opening their doors. I think Her Majesty Queen Rania should sit down before she opens up her mouth again, because she says a lot on television, but I don't notice her opening her palace to any of her fellow Palestinian refugees. The hypocrisy. If you could bottle it, it would be called Eau de Hypocrisy. But Israel has continued to send in aid. We still continue to send in aid. And I know that we've heard from the international community saying, but you stopped in that period between March and May. And the reason we did was simple. First of all, we had sent in enough. We had sent in enough aid. And second of all, the reason that we stopped it was because Hamas was hijacking that aid and using the money to fund their war machine to attack us. And we've heard from hostages like Eli Sharabi testifying before the UN Security Council that boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of aid went into those tunnels, and the hostages didn't see a thing. We have seen what our hostages look like, and we've seen images of Jews who look like that before in our history, and we all know where, and the world is silent, and the media is silent. I did not see Eviatar, David, or Ram Braslavsky make the front page of the New York Times. The New York Post, yes, but not the New York Times. But what the New York Times did do is they started a blood libel by exploiting sick Palestinian children with congenital diseases and passing them off as starving. And the whole world has fallen for it. The whole world has absolutely fallen for the lie of the blood libel. And Israel is in the process of finding out legally whether we can sue the New York Times for libel as a country. It's a little bit difficult to sue as a country. I'm not sure if there is legal precedent, but we are certainly checking to see that. And the final accusation before I start to take your questions is the accusation of randomly and indiscriminately bombing hospitals and schools, etc., in the Gaza Strip. So one of the foremost experts on urban warfare, Major John Spencer, he is the chair of urban warfare studies at West Point Military Academy. He and another great, great friend, Major Andrew Fox of the Henry Jackson Society, are amongst those military experts studying this war. And they've been in and out of Gaza multiple times, and in our list of resources that we're going to send out, we're going to send you the links to some of their work so that you can see for yourself. And you can't just see it for yourself, guys. As Lisa said, everybody has to be foot soldiers. We're going to ask you to disseminate to as many people as possible. So let's unpack that accusation. First of all, Gaza has about 36 hospitals, which I think is more than the state of Israel. I was shocked when I saw the map of hospitals across the Gaza Strip. So were people, I think, in the UAE. They were like, whoa, they've got more than we do. So Hamas has spent decades preparing what we call the kinetic battlefield. In order to understand what is happening above the ground, the destruction that you see, because Gaza does look like a wasteland, you have to understand what is happening under the ground. And what Hamas have prepared under the ground is the most intricate, sophisticated network of tunnels, over 500 miles of tunnel. I'm sure, have seen footage of the IDF when they blow up a tunnel, how long those tunnels are, and they all connect. It's like rabbit warrens. I wonder if one day we're not going to see the whole strip just implode. And I think that's what President Trump means when he says, get everyone out, get all that unexploded ordnance exploded, and let's start from scratch. Because I think literally one day that whole strip is going to collapse on itself because it's all dug out underneath. And they've used those tunnels to keep our hostages, to smuggle, to store weapons, and to scuttle off when they are attacked. Needless to say, the civilians of Gaza have got nowhere safe to go. And as Hamas have told people again and again and again and again, we are proud to sacrifice our civilians. Our brave civilians will stop the bombs with their chests. I can tell you, chests do not stop missiles. Because in June, many of us ran to our shelters multiple times a day and night because our chests were certainly not going to stop no ballistic missiles from hitting our homes. And Hamas have very cleverly embedded themselves in hospitals, in mosques, and in schools. We've heard it from our hostages who were released, that they'd been held in a mosque, taken to a school, held in homes, held by teachers, held by journalists, held by doctors. Heard how they've turned the whole entire Gaza Strip into a massive human shield. Just this week, we've heard from Gazans saying Hamas will not let us go to the safe zones and put up our tents there. They won't allow us to evacuate. Thank goodness, I think Hamas is at a stage where people in Gaza are feeling a little empowered and they're moving out of the line of combat as much as they can. I think yesterday's figure was about 300,000 have evacuated to the Al-Mawasi and other humanitarian zones. But I speak to soldiers and I can tell you that they tell me when we go into a house, and nearly every house is booby-trapped in some way, we go straight to the child's room. We don't even bother checking. We go straight to the child's room because we know without a doubt we're going to find something there. We're going to find weapons. We're going to find tunnel shafts. We're going to find something. The bodies of our beautiful six, Hirsch, Ori, Alex, Carmel, Eden, and Almog, were found in a tunnel in a child's bedroom. And trying to explain that to the outside world, that you need to understand we are fighting an enemy so insidious, so evil, that not only have you seen what they did to us on the 7th of October, although I have seen a phenomenon I've never seen in any other incident in history at any time ever, and that is both the celebration and the denial of event in a single breath. It's like, make up your mind. You can't celebrate the 7th of October and deny it at the same time, but apparently you can. This is the kind of people that we are dealing with. And people who are willing to sacrifice their own civilian population so that ordinary people in Toronto and Vancouver and London and Cape Town and wherever they are in the world think Israel is an evil beyond comprehension, because look what they are doing to these civilians. You know what you say to those people? You are gullible. You have fallen for this. And by falling for this, you have empowered Hamas. The longer you believe this propaganda malarkey, and that's why I go back to my first point, the media have become stenographers for Hamas. They do not question and quote verbatim whatever civilian casualty number Hamas puts out there. And we know Hamas make no distinctions between civilians and combatants. And Andrew Fox has studied it in great depth, and we're going to send you the resource to his brilliant paper, Questionable Counting, where he uses Hamas's own data to explain civilian casualties. The world falls for it every time. You'd think by now they would know. And Hannah Einbinder, love, when Hamas congratulates you while naturally censoring your shoulders because they think you're a hooker, perhaps you are on the wrong side of history. And with that, I'll take your questions.
Is there any way to change, do you see us being able to change the narrative at all?
It's a very good question. First of all, I think we in Israel have got a lot of work to do on improving how we get our messaging across. And we can do it. We saw with Operation Rising Lion that we had our message on point and we got it out, and there was no traps that we fell into. If you're asking whether you can locally, I think this is where Lisa's right, that everybody has to be a foot soldier of sorts. Every single one of us can and actually must be active, because we can no longer be passive in the fight against anti-Semitism and lies and propaganda against us. Write to your papers, even if they don't respond to you. The more of you who write and complain, not emotionally, because an editor is going to get their back up. Not emotionally, but with facts. Clinically and factually. If you want to be emotional, get a punching bag and take your temper out on that. That's what I do. But stick to the facts. Don't be accusatory and don't be emotional. Just say your broadcast, your article, your whatever said this, but here is the empirical proof. Here is the proof. Are you going to correct it? And you keep writing and you keep badgering and you keep badgering and you keep badgering. You know, South Africans, you might be familiar with an African parable that you can fell a lion with a mosquito. So be the mosquito in the ear of the elephant.
Yes, along those lines, there's an organization called Honest Reporting.
Yeah, no, honest reporting well.
You don't even have to write anything, you just,
you don't even have to write anything. They make it easy for you if you follow them, and they have all these instruments already, letters, everything directed to the right people. You just get on and you add your name to it, and it's very easy.
Honest reporting, by the way, is on our list of resources. So it's there, and anyone who wants a template and to do that. Camera.org is also another one. They also have templates for you. So, you know, let's get active. I saw
Oh, is it okay? Sorry. So I did have a question about, it might be a little sensitive, but the Israelis. I mean, I know there's always misinformation here, but there shouldn't be misinformation in Israel. They should know everything you're saying, and yet I see Israelis also being very, very critical of what is going on, mostly about the extension of the war on the hostages, but also some are saying, yeah, look what we're doing for the Gazans.
Well, first of all, Israel's a democracy. And Israelis know the difference between misinformation and whatever. Of course you're going to get Israelis who are sympathizing and empathizing, but please don't confuse the demanding of the release of the hostages and how long the war is going on for misinformation. In Israel, we all have different opinions. We all want the same thing. We all want our hostages back, and we all want Hamas to be defeated. How we do that, there are a variety of opinions. So it's not about criticism. And of course, listen, it hurts us to see civilians in Gaza suffer. We don't want to see that. But we understand how it started. Lady over there.
What's the motivation for the lying by mass media, like the ABC story you told us?
I think that they are pushing a specific narrative that is put out by their government. They are the state broadcaster. I mean, in the weeks following the 7th of October, Penny Wong she's the Foreign Minister of Australia. She came to Israel and she did not go to the south. And my theory is that she didn't want to go to the south because then she'd have to confront the fact that her foreign policy is an utter disaster. So I think it's a lot of things. I think that there is the BBC's like institutionally rotten. That we know for a fact because we've had the investigations that prove it. You've got a lot of different factors. You've got they're the state broadcaster. They are a lot more left-leaning. They have zero sympathy for Israel. And also, they know where the majority of the minority communities lies. And that they're watching closely. Who they're not paying attention to, I believe, is the silent majority who is either not interested or over this nonsense. And I do think we're going to see a pushback in the public, and it's going to be interesting to see if that starts affecting the way the media report on Israel. But having said that, we still do have friendly media. I see.
I just wanted to ask. Wait for the microphone. Sorry, I just wanted to understand why there's not more of an uprising from the Gazans. Like, why are the people of Gaza?
Well, I think first of all, they're also living through war, and it's also very difficult for them. And I think many of them are terrified. We've seen what happens to Gazans who rise up. We've seen what happens to Gazans who go and get their food from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. That's not Israel killing Gazans. You only have to scroll through Twitter to see kids being beaten by Hamas, suspected of whatever it is Hamas drums up. Gazans who stand up are severely persecuted by Hamas. It's a very, very difficult situation for them in the Gaza Strip. So, we in Israel are also saying, rise up, stand up, do something. But I think a lot of them are absolutely terrified. This lady and then that lady.
So, I feel powerless, and Hamas, how does it end? Like, 2 years this has been going on, and we kill them, and more come, and it goes on and on and on. What is the game plan? How does it end? Where does it go from here?
I wish I had a crystal ball, Look, we've dealt Hamas as much of a smack as we can, and we are committed to getting rid of Hamas. And even Secretary of State Rubio said today, he said they must cease to exist. President Trump has warned them again today. We've heard the Arab world say that they have no future in the Gaza Strip. They have no future. The question is when. Where does it end? When will it be enough? This is what we all want to know. So I wish I had an answer for that, but unfortunately I don't.
There's a question over here. So my question is a very Canadian question. I think that we have a lot of youth mostly that is, falling for the lack of our educational system here. And not just myself, but they're pretty radicalized, right? So it doesn't matter that we're showing them facts. we just, it's of no use. So what is perhaps a better approach to get them to see reality, to present it to them? Because I think that if we find a way to get them to open up to see the other side, then perhaps we're making a little step forward.
I think there's a lot of factors about why the youth are the way they are. I think some of them are completely radicalized. I think a lot of them are scared that if they don't fit in with the trend right now, that they are going to be excluded. I think also there will come a time when they will grow up, and unfortunately, as we've seen throughout history, there will come a time when those who they support turn on them, because it happens again and again and again. And I always say to the extreme radical Jews, as we call them, when they come for you, you're going to be first, because at least they respect us, because we know who they are. They have no respect for you other than you are serving as a useful idiot. And I hear from students a lot that they are terrified in university, not just from their peers, but from the faculty, because they're scared to speak up in class. In fact, I just wrote an article about this very issue for the JNS about 2 weeks ago. I interviewed the head of the Raphael Recanati School at Reichman University, and he said he's got so many testimonies from students saying, I'm scared to speak up in class, my professor says this, if I do speak up, not only am I penalized, but I'm also threatened. My safety, my life is threatened. So I think for a lot of them, they're uneducated, they're very ignorant, and I think a lot of them feel this is a trend I need to fit in with. I mean, I had it today. I had some dingbat on Instagram saying to me, you Zionist and your army, and this was a Jewish girl, and your army was told to stay back for 6 hours on the 7th of October, and you started, and my answer to her was simple. You can believe any conspiracy theory you want. It doesn't make it fact. You can suck it out of your thumb, love. It's not going to be a fact.
We can take 2 more questions. Right here in the blue.
Here and lady there.
Next week, the UN General Assembly. Canada included, many international countries think they've got some legitimate peace partner there. But what's your thinking on that? Tell us what you think is going to happen there, what's going to come from that?
Well, I declare a state of Narnia. You know who I feel sorry for? I feel sorry for the Kurds. I feel so sorry for the Basques. I feel sorry for all these people, the Yazidis. I feel sorry for so many people who have been stateless for decades and decades and decades and decades, and nobody gives a, pardon my language, shit about their statelessness. But the Palestinians, this entity, they get all the attention. I feel sorry for people, especially children in Sudan and Yemen and across the African continent, who are starving, who are wonder where the headlines are for them. I feel sorry for the Christian communities across Nigeria and Africa who are being systematically slaughtered, and nobody is saying a word. And of course our Druze brothers and sisters who are experiencing 7th of October every single day, with the only army that defending them being the Israel Defense Forces. But they're going to go to the UN, and state after state is going to say, I recognize a Palestinian state. Mazal tov, love. That's wonderful. Now let's talk tachlis. What are the borders? Do you meet the criteria the legal criteria. Because don't come to us about international law. You don't even comply with international law. In fact, you violate the Oslo Accords, which state very clearly about 2 states that have to be negotiated between the 2 parties. So you can declare whatever you want. It is not going to change the reality on the ground. But what you are doing is you are empowering a terrorist organization who is proscribed in many of your countries. And when you start to see ramifications on your streets, remember when we warned you against recognizing terror, because all you are doing is rewarding it. Would you have given Osama bin Laden a state? Absolutely not. So why are you doing it for Hamas?
Okay, we have one last question over there.
So I consider myself a CNN junkie. So what I don't understand is, and I see the news and I see these terrible things they're reporting that Israel bombed a hospital, and I'm waiting for the Israel response. I'm just wondering why the government doesn't get a new PR firm or something. I think they have to get it out more, because you're only hearing one side.
Well, first of all, there are attempts. There are attempts. I know honest reporting. I know all of us challenge those accusations. And I think maybe what you mean is CNN says something and you want an immediate response. It doesn't work like that when you have an army that is the army of a democratic country. We investigate, we check, we make sure. And I know a lot, because I hear it from people all the time. The army is too slow. The army are not slow. They're going through the processes that you have to go through in a democracy. The problem is we live in a very fast news cycle. Absolutely, we can improve our PR. We have to improve our PR. And maybe, no names mentioned, Sarah Netanyahu don't have an issue with the most brilliant spokesperson that we have in the form of Eilon Levy. We all know Israel needs to improve on that, but we also have to remember another thing. We are a country at war. And we can't be transparent on absolutely everything and give you information about absolutely everything, because we are also fighting a military campaign. It takes time to investigate. We do things the proper way, which is how I think you would expect your army to behave if ever you were attacked. And that brings me to another point. I think many countries and the media in these countries have forgotten that they don't live through war. They don't live with daily attacks on their citizenry. And it's easy to criticize, and it's easy to make demands. We are living it. And I know as a journalist, the IDF is communicating with us all through the day as much as possible. In fact, I don't even annoy you guys so much with what they send, because otherwise I really would annoy you. They're doing the best they can. Yes, there's room for improvement, but if I can make a suggestion, get off CNN. Go watch Real Housewives or something. Take a news break. You are driving yourself nuts. It's not good for you. Take regular news breaks. I do, and you need it for your mental health.
Rolene, before I wrap up our evening, I'd love to thank you so much for your passionate and powerful words.
Thank you.
Bringing them on behalf of CHW across Canada. We can't thank you enough. My husband is here, and we look forward to being with you in Israel in November.
I will see you in
with
November.
many people that are here tonight. And I loved how you engaged with our audience and with the conversation, so I hope you'll stick around for a few minutes after. But thank you for taking so much time to be on, and also for your role in with WIZO, because like you, it's in my blood, and I'm going to wrap up about talking about CHW, but thank you so much. So like Tova said, she's been a part of CHW for many years. My family has been CHW members for generations, and I'm part of an organization that I'm so proud that we believe every person deserves safety, dignity, and the chance to achieve their full potential. We're proud to keep making that possible, one project, one partnership, and one life at a time. We are all here today because we support Israel. We want to be able to talk about about what's going on there and to advocate for Israel with confidence. Thank you, Rolene. This is so helpful in order to do that. We want to thank everyone here for joining us, and thank you all for standing together with us in solidarity. Have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see all of you again soon.